Excuse me, but would you by chance happen to know the difference between black representation versus black targeting? Because it don't seem like a lot of people out here do. What it do, family? First and foremost, I want to apologize. I didn't drop a video last week. I didn't go live, anything like that. It was my testing week, and it was a little bit stressful within that week, so I actually took that week off. But we back. We about to talk about something that needs to be discussed, which is the difference between black representation versus black targeting. Because I was listening to a bunch of people on the campus talk about the new Wonka video that's supposed to, a movie that's supposed to be coming out. And one of the women there, she was saying how cool it was that they're adding black characters into the movie. Now, I don't know who read that book or not, and I don't know whether people are knowledgeable enough to understand the difference between black targeting and black representation. But if you read that book, you would be clear on why, one, this movie shouldn't even exist. The movie shouldn't even exist, to be honest with you, let alone have black folk participate in the movie. Pop quiz. What is this picture behind me? If you were to say that these were the slaves from the tribe of Oompa Loompa from the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original book, that is, then you would be correct. You would be correct. But a lot of people don't realize what they're gassing on. So we're going to get into it today. And by the end of this video, I hope that there will be a clear-cut understanding on the differences between black representation versus black targeting. Let's go. For those who don't know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a book written by a racist named Ronald Dahl. And it was released originally in, I believe, January of 1964, and then released in the Americas in November of 1964. But notice what time frame that is. That's around the time that black Americans was fighting that fight for civil rights and all that other good stuff. So that's one interesting thing to look at. But also, this is also the book that the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, starring Gene Wilder in 1971, and then again starring Johnny Depp in 2005, I believe it was. These is what these movies were adapted from, this book. Now, I want to touch on a few articles, starting off with this one from Screen Rant. Wonka, release date, cast, and everything we need to know. And I'm not going to read all of this, but if you would like to read this, I'll leave the link in the description. The Wonka movie is a prequel to Ronald Dahl's beloved 1964 novel Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And as the much anticipated winter 2023 release date get closer, viewers are getting their first looks at Timothy Chalamet, I guess that's his name, version of the iconic chocolatier. Now, it was important for me to read that because I want you guys to know that it is a prequel to the book in which Ronald Dahl went to Africa to go and actually obtain his Oompa Loompa slaves. It is a prequel to that. But we'll get there. While it is known that Wonka will focus on never-before-seen periods in Willy Wonka's history and provide him with the origin story of sorts, much still remains shrouded in mystery. As such, the Timothy Chalamet Wonka movie is the subject of intense speculation amongst Ronald Dahl fans, as well as casual moviegoers who enjoyed both the Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp version of Willy Wonka. Now let's jump over to this other article. This article comes from Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, and it's called, "Oh No, the Depressing Truth About Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory Workers." Countless Americans grew up with Ronald Dahl's captivating 1964 children's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or with one of its two film versions in 1971 and 2005. Who knew during all this time that the most beloved story is shot full of white supremacist messages worthy of the Ku Klux Klan? But now we do. And now it's the time to replace this destructive narrative for one that tells healing truths. And I have to fully disagree with that. I hate when people try to cover racism with ethnicity. So you try to cover racism by switching out a character for a black character so that the movie or the book or whatever the situation seem less racist. But to me, that would be like switching out a white actor who's playing someone like Robert E. Lee for a black actor like John Legend or Jamie Foxx or something like that in order to make the movie more inclusive. What kind of sense does that make? Netflix has announced that it will create a series of animations from 16 of Dahl's children's tales, and the most predominant among them, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And this past June, Newsweek reported that Hollywood is considering yet another film knockoff of Dahl's story, only this time as a prequel, explaining how Willy Wonka acquired his riches and legendary chocolate factory. And from everything that everyone is saying, that didn't happen for Donald Glover whatsoever. And here we have another example of a black targeted post. It comes from a Twitter page, I refuse to call it X. It comes from a Twitter page called HuffPost Black Voices. Don't nobody even know who these folks are. Don't know if they're black, or even if they are, your voice does not speak for all black folk. But I digress. So anyway, the posts actually say, people love an artist's proposal of the Black Charlie for Netflix's animated remake of Willy Wonka, right? And that's not too bad. It's fine and dandy. But like I said, that's just black targeting. Of course, people would love it because the Negroes would jump on it. The Negroes just want some sort of representation, and we can juice them for every dollar they got. I digress. Let's get back to it. Inverting history in a way that would have shocked Dahl, the new film may star the African-American actor, comedian, and singer Donald Glover as Wonka. Newsweek quoted Dahl widow, Felicity Duabry Crossland Dahl, as saying that her former husband's original scheme was to have Charlie, the boy who finds the golden ticket and gets him into Wonka's legendary factory, be a little black boy. So let me read that again. This is his widow speaking. Felicity Duabry Crossland Dahl. She said, just like this, her former husband's original scheme was to have Charlie, the boy who finds the golden ticket that gets him into the Wonka legendary factory, Be a little black boy. Now, let me tell you something. If that is true, that's more cynical than what the story originally says about how he achieved his wealth and how he achieved his workers. And this is supposed to be a prequel to that. Right? Let's continue. In a BBC radio interview, she declared, "It's a great pity that Dahl, who at the time was married to the American actress Patricia Neal, bowed to his publisher's wishes and dropped the idea. The latest possible remake would go far beyond anything Dahl could have envisioned. But will it go far enough? Does Donald Glover or anyone else associated with this new effort fully understand what is at stake?" Now, let me just say this before we move on as well. If it is true what his widow said, that he originally wanted a black child to take his place, then effectively what he would be doing is grooming a black child in order to become a slave owner over his own people. It sounds just like what was going on during slavery days, when they used to put overseers over the slaves, and they were usually black overseers over the slaves. This is what the truth of the matter shows, right? So the most egregious situation in this whole book, if that is true what she said, is that he was trying to take a black child and groom that black child to make him the overseer of his company, of his plantation. Let's move on. Despite what Felicity Dahl implied, Ronald Dahl never considered any black roles for his famous story that were not right out of the Sambo tradition, British imperialism, or slavery. Indeed, the workers for his chocolate factory, the Oompa Loompas, were slaves. When Charlie and the other 4 golden ticket holders and their parents first spied the Oompa Loompas, Wonka explained that the workers were not made of chocolate, but they are real people. They're some of my workers. He had imported the tiny black people direct from Africa. They belong to a tribe of tiny miniature pygmies known as Oompa Loompas. I discovered them myself, Wonka exclaimed. I brought them over from Africa myself. The whole tribe of them. 3,000 in all. I found them in the very deepest and darkest parts of the African jungle, where no white man has ever been before. Wonka informed Charlie and his companions that the tribe had been starving, subsisting on green caterpillars, but longed for cocoa beans. Really? Oh, how they craved them, he said. He bargained with the tribe and promised that if they agreed to live in my factory, that they could have all the cocoa beans they wanted. I'll even pay your wages in cocoa beans if you wish. What does that sound like? It kind of sounds like what happened after the slaves got released and couldn't get jobs anywhere. So what ended up happening, because they had all the skills, you had these slave owners bringing them back onto the plantation, letting them live for free, but work and get nothing. But work and get nothing. Yeah, you was able to eat, you was able to live on that plantation, but you would not be able to share in the benefit of your labor that you actually partook in for almost 12 to 23 hours, depending. So the black pygmies traded their freedom for predominant enslavement. Let me say that again. So the black pygmies traded their freedom for predominant enslavement and all the cocoa beans they could eat. After the tribe leader agreed to stop eating green caterpillars and work for cocoa beans, Wonka shipped them over here, every man, woman, and child in the Oompa Loompa tribe. It was easy. I smuggled them over in large packing cases with holes in them. It was easy, he said. I smuggled them over in large packages with holes in them. And they all got here safely. Oh, definitely just like the slave trade, correct? Maybe without the boxes with holes in them, but we don't know every story from the slave trade, do we? No. Let's continue. Because Britain, the slave trade, had outlawed the trade in 1807, I don't know why that reads like that, as Wonka alluded to, he smuggled the slaves into England in packaging cases. In packaging cases. It was already illegal. And the mother effer smuggled them in packing cases. In conditions that sounded almost as horrific as the Middle Passage. This is where we are. And so that no one would miss the point, Joseph Schindlerman's images of the Oompa Loompas in the book showed them as animal skin clad jovial Sambos who just love their labor. And trust me, this iteration of this movie has literally stuck to the core of where Doll was coming from. You have all three of the Sambo characters in this movie. You have the house Negro Sambo. You got the big mammy pammy Sammy Sambo. And then you have the half black Sambo. All in one film. So I would say that this movie does Doll's vision more justice than they're making it seem.
Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. He was the star of Black Panther that died today at the age of 43.
I'm always ready for a war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same.
I got a dream.
One day.
We gonna work it out.
One day.
We gonna work it out.
One day.
We gonna work it out.
In a world of internet lies, we all look for love.
You're listening and tuning into
the station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
Best music. Classic radio. Broadcasting live.
South Carolina, after nearly 30 years in power, James Clyburn has the sixth poorest district among 435 districts in the country. We, his black constituents, have the shortest lives, lowest wealth, and own less homes now than we did during Jim Crow. Do we not deserve better? Greg Marcel Dixon has a plan to repair Black America. Reparations, reforming heirs property, reinstating the Freedmen's Bureau. We deserve better than James Clyburn. Let's vote like it. Vote for Greg Marcel Dixon to repair Black America, to fix America.
Doll, as he later confessed, grew up with an imperialist frame of mind, while in prep school, for instance, and dreaming about gold and an adventurous life that might be awaiting him in Africa, he remarked, "Sometimes there is a great advantage in traveling to hot countries where niggers dwell." Let me reread that. He said, "Sometimes there is a great advantage in traveling to hot countries where niggers dwell." He carried that attitude to Africa just before World War II, when he labored for the Asiatic Petroleum Company in the former German East Africa, then known as Tanganyika. His imperial enterprise and his experiences with the servants he commanded and whom he labeled boy, and the native Africans he encountered would shape his racial views and tincture almost all his future writings. Even in 1982, long after the NAACP condemned the way he presented Africans, and after he dropped the Black Oompa Loompas in the revision of the book, he continued in the same vein. His first draft of the BFG, the friendly giant at the center of the book, emerged as the very worst imitation of a Zip Coon figure, a black flat-nosed giant with thick rubbery lips, like two gigantic purple frankfurters lying on top of each other. Lying on top of the other. For once, an editor spoke up. Dahl's new editor, Stefan Roxburgh at Farrar, Stratus, and that's a French word, Girac. You guys got to forgive me, I do not speak French. Properly denounced Dahl's characterization as a derisive stereotype. Dahl conceded the point, responding, "The Negro lips thing is taken care of." So a lot of the characteristics of Dahl literally are put into a lot of his works, his books, and things like that. With this Willy Wonka situation, and this is another thing that I wanted to bring up too, because this is supposed to be a prequel to the Willy Wonka book. And if the book told you, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book told you how he got slaves originally, right? Then you see things like this. Yeah. The movie's supposed to be a prequel, right? So prior to him going to Africa to go and literally enslave the Oompa Loompa tribe, they're showing you here he's swinging around with his befriended black person. I really want that to sink in, because they're showing you pictures of him dancing around and all this other stuff with this little black girl. And this is supposed to be a prequel to him flying over to Africa and getting the Oompa Loompa tribe. Do you see where I'm going with this? You see where I'm going with this? So, I would have to ask, was the friendship with the black girl or being around the black folk, did that give him the idea to say, hey, I need to go to Africa and get me some of these people so they can work in my factory? And I know it's a fictional character, but you have to understand what it means when they said it's supposed to be a prequel to Dahl's classic book, which means his classic book hasn't changed. The original of that book stands firm, and they're not, what is it called, going in and changing anything from the classic book. But this is a prequel to that classic book. So if this is supposed to take place before he goes to Africa, I would have to question what was the catalyst of him feeling he could just go to Africa and bring back black people. and bring back African slaves. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make any sense that these folks are in this movie in general. The movie shouldn't even exist. This one or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, due to the racism of Daw. Packed full of white supremacist ideologies. But many of us are running around talking about what's wrong with it. It's representation. No, it isn't. It is targeting. You don't own anything on that movie. So they put a black face in your face, all of a sudden you feel represented? You ain't even see the movie to see how that person is being represented for you to even want to know if it's representation for you. You should automatically assume whenever you see a black person in a white movie, especially coming from a white racist bigot, you should be questioning why that is. And also, why those people would want to partake in the movie with this information being out there. That's not black representation. It's targeting. The same way, I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but you turn on the TV, whatever the situation may be, and most of the commercials, you see more interracial relationships in commercials nowadays than you see black men and black women and black family. You got cartoons putting it all over the place where they're making the dad black, the mom white, and the kids biracial. That's targeting. That's targeting. So there's other situations. I saw an AIDS commercial the other day for HIV, for this medication. Guess who they had the spokesperson be? A black male. And literally, most of the people they showed in the commercial were black. There were some white folks in there as well, but most of the people they showed in the commercial was black. But this was an HIV commercial. This was a commercial promoting a medication for HIV. That's targeting. Black people, we ain't known for having that virus like that. But you have to understand the target when you see black folks becoming the spokesperson for a company like Target. Now, all of a sudden, ever since people was talking about black representation in Hollywood, Hollywood said, okay, no problem. We're going to put your face everywhere because then we're going to get your money anywhere. Let's be honest. Let's be real about this. People just don't understand this from time to time because they only think that happens in politics. It happens a lot in politics, but it happens a lot everywhere else too. And when it comes to politics, you can see who's targeting versus representing. Kamala Harris is a targeter. She targets the black community. She don't represent the black community. Or Barack Obama, he's a targeter. He targets the black community. He don't represent the black community. Jim Clyburn, he's a targeter. He targets the black community. He don't represent the black community. And when I say target, it can mean several things, but in politics, it means they want you to vote for them for absolutely nothing. Taxation without representation. They don't give you anything for your community, no policies, none of that. So we need to step away from this so-called claim of wanting black representation and look at this stuff for what it actually is. A trick bag. A trick bag. And with that being said, family, if you have not hit the like or subscribe button yet, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. And literally, we got to knock this stuff off, family. We literally have to knock this stuff off because what we're doing is causing our own detriment by putting people in high places with black faces, but they don't do nothing for other black faces. But belittle us. But heckle us. Use derisive stereotypes against us. This is what we have to deal with. And until we move away from the nonsensical BS of representation, I don't even care if a person look like me at this point in time. If you ain't bringing me the things that I need for my community, then I ain't rocking with you. And if you are bringing me things that I need for my community, oh, I don't give a damn if you purple or blue. You gotta vote. But anything other is uncivilized. So uncivilized. And with that being said, family, the doors of the church are closed. Peace, fam. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Are you guys going to end up going to go see this movie? And if you are, what's your reasoning behind it? No judgment. I just want to know. Peace, fam.